But welcome. I'm so happy that we're all here, and I'm excited to get us started. Yes, here we go. Okay, so in our session today, we're going to be doing a roundtable discussion with 3 instructional design experts. And I call them experts, and then sometimes they tell me, no, I'm not an expert. Don't put me up on such a high pedestal, but I definitely value their work and think that they are all amazing, and I've definitely learned a lot from them. So I'm excited to share their perspectives with you. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Tara. I work with customer success and community management with EduFlow, and I'm also a facilitator of an EduFlow Academy course. And I just have had a fantastic experience in this role, and I'm excited to share what we've learned and just different things with you today. So today we're hosting this as just a free open webinar for you to come and learn something. We're going to share some resources at the end. We're going to record the session, so if you missed something, no worries, you can pop into the recording. And we're super excited to get started. I'm going to have each of the panelists go ahead and introduce themselves, say a little bit about your background, where you're coming from, and we'll get started.
Brenna.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so my name's Brenna. I am currently Senior Instructional Designer at Muse, which is a software as a service platform for the hospitality industry. Before I kind of fell into learning and development, I was an English teacher for many years. So I'm sure many of you are maybe going through that right now, where you're transitioning from teaching to instructional design. So I've now been in learning and development, instructional design for a little bit over 5 years. And most of that time has been within the software and technology industry.
Let's go, Mo.
I was going to hand it over to William, honestly. Okay. Okay. My name is Mo Ash. That's the nickname. As a matter of fact, that's not actually my name, but my name is Muhammad Rida. See how hard it is. I've been actually, I didn't start off in teaching or anything remotely related to learning and development. I actually started off working in UN for UNESCO. And I was in the scientific department. I was running something called the ICDL, the International Computer Driving License. I was the quality assurance manager for the in the Cairo office, and I had no clue what L&D is all about. But and I actually had like issues standing in front of people to even do public speeches. But later on, life just had its way with me, and I started working as a trainer. 15 years later, I'm an L&D professional. I've been on many frontiers, working corporate, working as a service provider, and also working as a freelancer. Currently, I have my own establishment. It's called The Catalyst. We create learning experiences. We do learning games, board game simulations, learning games online. That's why we went for Genie and other services as well. And it helps us do our job. And I've been in the field of instructional design for about 7 years, I suppose, with a focus on it, because before that I was more into corporate training and being a trainer. And what else should I say? I'm married and I have a little kid. Her name is Jada, and that's basically it. Very happy about that. She's 2 years old. So yeah.
I guess it's my turn. Hello, everyone. My name is William Cronier, and I am an instructional designer and program manager at EduFlow Academy. Maybe if we can get like a reactions or show of hands, or in the chat, an indication of anyone who has been in an instructional design principles course or with EduFlow Academy or any type of EduFlow Academy course. But Tara and myself have been involved in putting together those courses, and that's what my big focus is at EduFlow and EduFlow Academy. At the moment, following up from the instructional design principles course, we're working on another one called Designing Social Learning Experiences, where we're taking everything we've learned from the first course and trying to turn that into a social, like translate the social skills and tools into. I really love seeing this. These like affirmations, I guess, in the chat from people who've done it. That's really, really cool. My background is, I've got a very weird background. I went straight out of school. I did multimedia studies, and then I did a bachelor's, and then I started doing a master's in education, and I still need to finish my dissertation, but that's like one of my bucket list items. And while I was doing all of that, I was working at a learning design agency, or like an OPM, as they call it, creating executive level online courses. And that's, I guess, where my strength is in creating online courses and online learning experiences. And I'm really excited to be talking about that with these way more talented than me people in the panel. So it's really exciting. Tara, over to you.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves, sharing a bit of your background. Definitely, it's fun to, connect with the different little pieces that I know of all of you. I am also curious about who is in the audience. So I have a poll that we're going to do quick, just for me and for our presenters and panelists to get a sense of who you all are and get a sense of your experience. So I have 2 quick questions. I'm going to launch the poll right now. If you want to just take a minute to check out that poll, answer the questions if you are comfortable with doing so. While the poll runs, I'd love to give a quick shout out to my co-presenters. I see Chrissy is here from Genially, and she'll be answering some questions and providing information in the chat and during the session. So feel free to unmute and say hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Crisia. I'm country manager at Genially. US country manager at Genially. I'm here to help you and answer all the questions that you have. It will be amazing. What an amazing team we have here.
It is an amazing team. I love it.
I'm so excited.
Yes. Okay, so I see we have 72% of people have participated in the poll so far. I'll give it another quick second and give the panelists a chance to take a breath and prepare for my extensive questions that I'll be asking. We have a couple of questions prepared to kind of just like dig into what are some of the challenges that we experience in instructional design and how we can overcome those. And so, perfect. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Your last chance to submit your answer is in 3, 2, 1. Yes, perfect. Okay, I'll share the results on the screen for just a moment. And yes, so it looks like we have a big chunk of people transitioning to ID right now, and then a myriad of different experiences. Excellent, excellent. It's fun to see people who've been in this role for so long, 10 plus years. Congratulations, if that is you, that's amazing. If you are currently working in ID, I asked about what context you're in, and I see a lot of people are in corporate. We've got a big chunk of higher ed and K-12 and some nonprofit and a little bit of government public service. And yeah, if you said other in any of these questions, or if it doesn't apply, feel free to share in the chat about what your background is and how you came about to be here. Perfect. Okay, panelists, we are about to get started with the questions. So question number 1, people say that perfection is the enemy of progress. And it seems to be one of the biggest challenges when it comes to building learning experiences quickly. And sometimes there just isn't enough time to get a professional graphic designer, voiceover artist, film production crew to help out in creating learning experiences. How do each of you manage this challenge in your own work? And whoever would like to go first can unmute.
Maybe I can set the scene, maybe give a bit more context, because this might be like a very broad question. And I see Amanda Davison is in the chat, which is really awesome because we had a little conversation on LinkedIn earlier. And Amanda mentioned something about, how important it is to do an analysis. And so I think maybe to narrow down the scope of our questioning, let's assume that we have done an analysis and we know that creating a learning experience, that there is a skill shortage, and we need to create a learning experience. Maybe that'll help us to narrow down our answers to something a bit more concrete.
Great, I can jump in. So of course, I was also going to mention the analysis side of things, that is not a stage that as an instructional designer you ever want to skip over, because it's going to save you a lot of time when it comes to the development. Aside from that, I think having the basic principles of UX clear, Myers design principles, for example, is really going to help ensure that the learning experience that you're creating is actually going to be a positive experience for your learner and isn't going to hinder them. So I think those are kind of two things to really think about when you are designing. You don't need to have a graphic designer. Focusing kind of on that, a good UX and analyzing your content beforehand to ensure the accuracy is really going to help you. Of course, having access to a content creation tool that doesn't require programming, for example, like Genially, we use Genially on my team, is really going to help you create kind of fun, animated, interactive content easily without really needing to wait for or search for those experts to help you create.
Okay, so I'm not going to take a step back. I'm going to take like 2, 3, 4, 5 steps back. And I'm honestly, because sometimes we tumble with that one. I mean, do we really need a learning solution? Sometimes we don't. I mean, sometimes that question just pops in and like, is it a problem of will or is it a problem of skill? I mean, what's going on? Because sometimes they'll be like, oh, we want to do a video and we'd like to incorporate games, and humongous effort will be put. And at the end, what's the purpose? Oh, to motivate people. Motivating people is not going to happen using a learning solution. Okay, because we deal with a lot of clients that have the tendency to go fancy schmancy and they want to do big things. But the point is, maybe the solution only demands a job aid or a process that people can go through, or maybe they need something hybrid. I really need to understand if it's a problem of will, then if it's motivation, then maybe people are frustrated. They need one-to-one coaching, for instance, or work with the organizational development department if it's an organization. If it's a problem of skill and knowledge, well, obviously it's a learning, and then I need to see, I mean, the context of that learning. I need to know the culture, the mental state of people. I need to know the environment and how it can help. But obviously, if I'm going to be using Genially, or if I'm going to be using EduFlow in conjunction with Genially, will their mobiles work with that? Their phones would work with that? They have IT policies. So IT and tech is an issue. Maybe I'm going to be using social learning aspects. What are the apps and details that they're using under the radar? I can capitalize on it. There's so much to consider before I can say, okay, let me storyboard, let me develop, let me use a huge crew and spend a lot of money and effort on anything. Okay, so to me, this is extremely important, and I would advocate that anyone should go and read the book Map It, because they do speak about motivation, the environment, the skill, and the knowledge. If you consider those first, you are about to understand what kind of actions you're working on, or there are no actions at all. I'm Mo, this is my TED Talk. I'm done. Okay.
Map it. I'll type it into the. It's all about action mapping. So I'm gonna fast forward a bit and assume that we've done like a thorough and accurate needs assessment, and we know exactly what the problem is, and we know that we want to solve it with specific intervention. So I'm kind of especially in terms of building something quickly, I'm like a fan of building a minimal MVP, a minimum viable product. But I always like to throw in another little letter there, minimum viable accessible product. It has to be something that anyone can interact with. And often when we're creating something really quickly, it's easy to skip over transcripts or subtitles or stuff like that. And that leads me on to my next point in terms of, rapidly putting something together, is text can be a very, very valuable tool. Text can be, especially now that we have all of these really cool AI tools and stuff, text can be, turned into a video and a script with like a robot talking. I don't know if any of you've seen, I think it's Synthesia.io or something does that. It's really incredible. And then now pretty soon with DALL-E, I don't know if any of you played around with that, another AI tool where you can just type in a little description and then DALL-E will generate a picture for you based on your description. It'll be completely unique, not copyrighted at all. So I think in terms of creating that initial product, that minimum viable, accessible product, text can be a really, really useful tool to at least get the ball rolling. And then at least in our context with EduFlow, we have the privilege of being able to iterate. So we can, after one cohort, look at feedback and improve, and then decide where are people struggling, where do we need to make that better, and fix some gaps in the learning material. Cool. I'm gonna now step off my soapbox and hand it to someone else.
And I just want to check in, panelists, any last thoughts on this conversation before we look at changing the topic a little bit? Okay, perfect. So we have a poll to ask you a question about pushback. What I'm hearing is that it's more about the learning experience, the analysis, deciding what your learners need to create a motivating and engaging learning experience. And sometimes, people we've talked to have said they get pushback from their organizational leaders or their team saying, well, we need to do it this way because we've always done it this way, or we have to conform to this certain style guide. So we have to have, this is what it has to be. So our question for you before we talk about this question overall is about pushback. And so you'll see the poll question come up. Curious if you get pushback from your organizational leaders in your role about making sure that the learning experience conforms to some sort of style guide or necessary components. Maybe your company says it has to be a course and it can't be, a job aid, or it can't be something else. Has to be a course with a video. It can't be anything else. And so, yes, I'm curious to see your answers. I'll give it a little bit of a minute. And it has to look a specific way. It has to, conform to certain logos, certain branding, that kind of thing. And this is going to get into our next question. And I see the answers are slowing down a little bit. I'll give it 3 more seconds. Excellent. Okay, I'll share the results with everyone as well as the panelists to see the experiences of our audience. It looks like most people have said, yes, this happens sometimes. And then we have some that say this isn't applicable to their specific context. Any follow-up from the poll question from any of the panelists before I go on to the next question?
I think it's interesting that there's quite a variety of responses there. So that's really interesting. And I'm seeing in the chat as well, I think a little bit more of the branding, right, seems to be kind of the topic there. I'm lucky in my current position, they trust my expertise in consulting and saying what type of learning experience would be required based on the situation. But I have as well been in situations where, someone requests a video and it has to be a video. They're not open to hearing any other possibility.
I can also share, this isn't like answering the question, but I can share another experience or a story from my past where we had a stakeholder who they had a very specific brand guidelines, and this color had to be on top of this color and you couldn't use certain. The problem though was that the brand guidelines kind of like promoted text that didn't have a high enough contrast ratio, which made it inaccessible. So that was like a whole, stakeholder and almost like a change management thing where you had to negotiate with the stakeholders and say, well, we've got to change this to some extent, in some way, to make sure that we can make this, an accessible learning experience. So that was like an interesting story that might help us in the next question, I guess.
Well, in my case, I suppose, I always find problems with clients. I always find problems with organizations. They always have a specific style guide, but the point is, okay, you're giving me a guide. You're not giving me like holy commandments that I have to follow through. So I'm going to be using your colors. I'm going to be using your font. I am going to be using everything, but let me show you what I can do about it. And Brenna, I'm having a client that is having an issue that only video courses. I feel you wholeheartedly. And we are offering to them an e-learning course. Oh, an e-learning course. I'm like, okay, show me what e-learning course is causing you that kind of hardship and you're not okay with. Like, this is it. Okay, let me show you what an e-learning course do I mean. So I showed them an example of that. So their problem is usually stemmed out of, I don't want people to be going into something that would wasting them time, or I'm not going to go into something that will be hard for them to access or to work with. So it really simmers to understanding what's my client's problem. I mean, what's your issue? Your issue is engagement. Okay, let me play on that. Your issue is dealing with branding. How about we do something that your employees will consider that you are a cool employer that has fun things to offer to them. And I play from that thing. Yes, I triggered them in a way. I triggered that thing with them. And that's how I chime in. I'm like, okay, well, how about a game? How about something that they can use, something that they can play? Because one client of mine wanted e-learning, and instead I used the tool that you were just talking about, William, which is landbot.io, and I used AI, generated AI that will come to their phone, and they would have a text-based type of game that they can play, and they just enjoyed it. They didn't expect it. So I think it's showing the client what you could do, giving them sort of a miniature success story that they can capitalize on, and they can later on sell the thing for you, or I mean, sell the asset, sell the e-learning, sell the solution for you.
Excellent. Thank you everyone for sharing. We're kind of talking about these like challenges that we're facing when we create a learning experience. Maybe it's we have to like rapidly throw it together. Maybe it's that we're kind of conforming to what the company needs us to, or whatever it might be. Since these experiences that are developed aren't always perfect the first time, I'm curious to learn how you collect feedback from learners or from anyone who views the learning experience and incorporate that into updating the learning experience if it's necessary.
I can jump in and start again here. So yes, definitely now at Muse and in my previous experience as well, I think I follow the ADDIE model in most of the courses that I create. And of course, I don't think of it as linear. I think of it as a circle. So you're always evaluating, analyzing, and then, creating the process over again. So iteration is very important. For us, we do have a process of review with SMEs and then also with users once we've implemented the course. For us, we really prioritize the feedback. So if there's something in the feedback about information that's not correct or something that hinders the learning experience, hey, did you realize that this button was hidden, or something like that, that gets fixed immediately. When it comes to other feedback, hey, the design of this changed a little bit, but if it doesn't affect the way that the learner can kind of replicate what they're doing, then we put that kind of on the side. We save it to fix later. When it comes to content that we actually have embedded. So imagine, for example, we have a hands-on exercise that was created in Genially, and we have that embedded in our course. It's really easy to get in there, make the edit, because that shows up automatically. So that doesn't require us to download, upload, save another SCORM file, make sure we have our versions correct. So that really helps with those kind of small, quick edits that need to be done.
I think.
Go ahead.
No, you. It's a bro code. You suck.
So I'll build on what Brenna mentioned. So in the EduFlow courses, we often get reports where we might link out to something and then the link got removed or the link got corrupted or something like that, and then often you have to decide, is it important enough to remove this? Or to fix this. And so there's this nifty tool called the Eisenhower matrix. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's got two axes. Is it urgent or is it important? And depending on the axis, it helps you to prioritize. So if something is urgent and important, you sort that out immediately. If it's not urgent and if it's not important, then it's maybe not even something that you should be looking at. Or if it's important but urgent, then you can do it, or not. If it's important but not urgent, you can do it a bit later. It's something you can shelf for the next iteration of the course. So that really helps to prioritize those tasks. And yeah, in terms of iteration with EduFlow, we're also very fortunate because we can very quickly and easily collect feedback. We've got I think 2 or 3 different places where people can submit anonymous feedback, and then Tara and I can, at the end of every presentation or cohort, we collate all of that feedback and then pick up trends and see how we can just make it better every time, a little bit better. And that's quite a nice feature. Mo, go ahead.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to be borrowing some of what you're mentioning. I'm going to be talking about feedback from different aspects. Obviously speaking, review meetings are the worst thing that can happen to any instructional designer. I mean, let's review, let's go through the whole thing, let's iterate. I mean, iteration is part of what we do for a living, but we hate iteration as much as we hate what we hate. So I like to use Miro, the collaborative board, and because in the same space of Miro, I have my action map where me, the client, and the SME, we agreed on things. So, I mean, we're happy, we're all happy. I'm going to be working on that. And then we do our reminders, we do our sticky notes over here. And then we create a reminder on Miro. So why do we use Miro anyways? Because if anyone just sneezed on Miro or moved, everyone would know. We'll all have notes that something is happening. So I wouldn't need to get an email. I would just have Miro beside me. Something happened. It would tell me what it is. They can put a picture. They can put a link or so that there's a problem with the design and we can work on it right away. So this is the one with the SMEs and the client side. On the learner side, there is a possibility, and we've done that with a client before, that we left, and this needs this needs a bit of code to put in Storyline, that we can leave a survey at the end of the course where people can do a survey, fill in a couple of answers on questions that can tell us about their overall learning experience. And this gets collated into an Excel sheet. And that is really nice. Why did we do that? We could have used SCORM. Well, the client didn't have an LMS that has SCORM, honestly. And we had to go to unconventional methods that can help us do something like this. Another thing, the last kind of feedback, let's just say that this is a hybrid course. And I'm using Genially. And what I love about Genially in this sense is exactly what Brenna said, is that I can be in class and I'm using Genially in a synchronous session and something just happened. Oh, hold on. Go in, do my magic, yes. I fixed it for you and it works. But what about knowing what's happening with the course? I tell this to many of my designers. It's okay to sell the client the possibility of using Discord. So there is a part with the blended program that is that you can build a Discord server that has rooms, that has information, that has possibility of collaboration, social learning that is happening between the people of the same cohort or of the same program. And if anything happened, they can just talk there. The beauty of it is that you can do all of that using a bot that needs no coding experience and using Discord that needs no money. So you could build up the whole thing, people will be engaged. And if you want to be fancy, again, I know I'm using this word a lot, and you want to pay extra money, you can actually build a complete gamification system in Discord. So every time they go in, they're getting points. And when they get points and they reach a specific type of point or a badge or a level, they can get like resources from the course. Like, okay, you deserve to take that book. You deserve to take that thing. So it's actually fun. They deliver feedback and they engage, and they get prizes and goodies from the instructor or the designer that put up the course.
Amazing. Thank you all for this question. I've been noticing in the chat the conversation around tools and sharing tools that are, free or inexpensive and fun to use, easy to use to help you engage your learners. That's actually related to the next question that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. And I'm curious about if you, are working in instructional design right now, or even working on transitioning, how much money have you personally spent on tools? I'm loving the fact that that you're all chatting about this and sharing tools in the chat. So this will kind of lead into our next question. And so I'll give you a little chance to share. While the poll is running, I'll just let everyone know we're going to do a Q&A at the end of our session. So if you have like a burning question that you want to ask one or all of our panelists, definitely hang on to that. And we can ask those at the end during the Q&A session. Awesome. Okay, so we've got some responses so far in the poll. Excellent. I'll give it about 3 more seconds. And then I'll give a chance for the panelists to see the answers. And yeah, feel free if there's something specific you want to share in the chat. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end our poll. Here are our results. So it seems like a lot of people have spent $0 at like 41% of our responding people. And so that's really great to see. And then we kind of have some different answers across the board. So yes, very interesting. And of course, some people this might not apply to you. And I saw one person in the chat had put $1,500 plus. So that's excellent. All right, so this leads into our next question. We see that a common trap for instructional designers is to focus on the awesome tools and technology that deliver the learning without considering the learning theories that inform decisions about the actual design. And so my question for all of you is, which principles, theories, or rules of thumb do you use to inform your decision-making in the design phase specifically?
So I actually would like to start with an anecdote based on the poll. My very first learning and development position, at the time it was always in-person training that the company was doing for the employees using PowerPoint. So I kind of got the idea to start using e-learning and incorporate some newer tools. I've requested a budget for one of the well-known authoring tools that costs more than $1,000 that some of you might know. And actually, the company wasn't going to give me the budget for that tool. So I actually utilized like my personal training budget for the year plus, plus half of the next year to get that tool. I don't regret it because I learned a lot about how to use that tool, and it kind of forced me into some of the e-learning communities to learn more about e-learning, instructional design. But in hindsight, it maybe wasn't the most practical thing. So just to kind of my response on that poll. Regarding models or principles, one thing that I have discussed a lot at Muse when I started, kind of why I started there as an instructional designer, is andragogy. And that is a principle from Malcolm Knowles, which became popular in the 80s. And that is specifically the science and the art of helping adults learn. And I think this is something, especially those of you who have been maybe in primary education and you're transitioning to instructional design, it's something to keep in mind because adults do learn differently from children. So some of the main points about this that I would like to share, if you haven't heard of this before, is for adults, it's really important that they know the why, right? You're asking them to do a course, you're teaching them something, they want to know the why. So don't leave that out of your course introduction. Why should they be doing this? Why do they have to learn this, or why should they? Adults also need internal motivation, right? It's not just extrinsic motivation anymore, it's internal. So try to connect it to why they should be motivated to take this course. How is it relevant for them in their day-to-day? Another thing that adults do, right, when we learn is we use our past experience and our past knowledge as the foundation for our learning. Whether or not the course that you're providing them has to do with their past experience, the way that they are going to kind of interpret, digest their course is based on their past experience. So something to keep in mind. And then the final point there is that adults are self-directed. They want to take charge. They want to take control of their learning. So more like task-oriented learning that really aligns with their reality, not something that's so far from their reality that they can't see the connection with their day-to-day, right? Their job or their life. So that's kind of what I would kind of insist upon, and one of the main principles that I use. Now, this is related to what I do in my day-to-day job because I work in a software company, and my main job is actually training our users on how to use that software. Now, of course, I could, create courses, text on what they have to click here, click here, click here. But we do a lot of branching scenarios and software simulations so that they're learning how to use the software, actually being inside of it. They have to click, and then that takes them to the next page in the software. So when they are actually, imagine someone that works at the front desk of a hotel. They're learning how to use this software actually inside of it. So then when they're on the job and they need to check a guest in, they've already gone through those clicks and they know what to do. All right, pass it on to one of the other panelists.
Okay. So I've been keeping up with the chat and just trying to wrap my head around what to say. And also, you know what, I'm going to be borrowing some of what you're saying and answer the people on the chat with it. So Brenna did raise an interesting point, which is that adults need to be motivated. And if I'm going to literally piggyback on what she said, the intrinsic motivation is definitely stemmed from Ryan and DC's self-determination theory. People are purpose maximizers. People care about purpose. People care about autonomy. People care about being able to get better at things, which is mastery. And people care about relatedness, that they're related to what they're about to learn, related to what they're going to be working on. So self-determination theory, which is motivational psychology, really works well with what we do on day-to-day basis in learning and development. So that's one. Number two, there was a question, why do adult learners depend on their past experience? Well, according to educational psychology, we have behaviorism, constructivism, cognitivism, and connectivism. Let's just focus on constructivism. So the way our brains work is that we either assimilate or accommodate the knowledge that we learn and get from the environment around us. So assimilation and accommodation doesn't really happen that easy. We need to have a huge means of cognitive conflict, a challenge, something that can shake us so we can assimilate or accommodate that new piece of knowledge or set it with the knowledge that we know to make sense of the world around us. And this is where constructivism comes into place, that we try to construct everything from what we know, our past experience, with what we are learning. But our capacity as human beings, it's not that huge. It's pretty minute. It's pretty small. So that's why we should be focusing again on what Brenna said, which was action mapping. Action mapping says, I need to think about what people need to do, the actions that they need to work on to change their job behavior. I'm focusing on performance. Ergo, I'm going to be meeting the business goals or the organizational goals that I'm building a learning experience for. Plus, I need to give them minimum necessary knowledge to carry out the activity, to reach that action, to perform, to get to the goal. So we're gapping the learning need. Now, since we're only focusing on actions and minimum necessary knowledge, this is perfect for someone that wants to assimilate and accommodate. Again, constructivism. And if that has a purpose, which is making me better at what I do, it's actually making me do my job in less time or in less effort or with more productivity, which is mastery. And I have the choice with a good learning experience that is not only click and reveal, but I can engage with it. Like in Genially, we do an escape room, for instance. We can, with EduFlow, talk with people and get like peer feedback, or even on Discord, I can engage with people, get understandings from others. This is autonomy. And relatedness. I feel that I'm part of something bigger. All of this is coping and helping for me to get better at what I do. So I put all of that in a bottle and I consider it when I am thinking about my design process. True that also I have to look into my Bloom's taxonomy, but Bloom's taxonomy is actually built on actionable verbs. So it's good that you can do your action mapping, but you need to send to the client not only the map, but you need to tell them by the end of this learning experience, they will be able to. That is not something that you should be putting up at the beginning of your PowerPoint presentation. No, this is something that will be considered more of your blueprint, so you can build your learning experience and learning activities upon. So I'm thinking actionable verbs that I'm going to be using. Also, I'm thinking actionable verbs that I can control and measure and reach, because sometimes people will be like, by the end of this training, by the end of this program, you'll be able to succeed. Succeed is not an actionable verb, and they're not going to succeed after the program. They will be able to apply, maybe practice, maybe build, create, construct, and that would happen during the learning experience, not afterwards, not before. So ANECT, I guess, said, oh, for the academic sector is only Bloom's, corporate doesn't. No, we do it. It's extremely important. So yeah, that's design in a way, and this is how we build activities. And when I say activities, activities are not exercises. Activities is every activity for presentation purposes or for exercising purposes. They're all something that needs activation by the learner.
I'll jump on that bandwagon about learning objectives. I think in terms of developing learning material and looking at learning material, one of my pet peeves is learning the history of something when it has no reason to be there. Sometimes I especially if it's like, how do I become a better leader as an adult learner? Let's say I need to learn about communication skills. If a course starts with, this is the history of communication, that's an immediate red flag. It means that this isn't necessarily going to be a focused course because it's not guided by measurable learning objectives. So to kind of build on what's been said, and I see someone's already mentioned this in the chat, there's this concept of constructive alignment, which is the idea that what you start with your learning objective, and then you have your assessment and you have your learning material. And those three things should always be complementing one another. If what you assess, you should teach, and you should also have as your learning objective. The moment something is out of alignment, it means that you're either assessing something that isn't being taught, or you are wasting people's time because it's not a learning. It's learning material that doesn't align with the learning objective. I use that as like a golden rule when it comes to like efficient. And especially if we're talking about rapid and quick, learning experiences, we need to stick to some type of like golden rule. And for me, that is it aligned with the learning objective? And if it's not, then I just cut it. And sometimes we have to be very brutal about what we cut.
Awesome. This was a really great conversation and question. And definitely, I appreciate the people who are responding in the chat and saying, some really impactful, insightful things. We have time for one more question, so I'm going to jump right into it and encourage my panelists to be as succinct as possible while still getting your point across. So the question is, one of the awesome aspects of instructional design is how practitioners can solve the same problem, but use different ways, different methods. And so the question is, if there are a lot of opportunities to be creative and play to your strengths, what type of learning activity do you personally find yourself creating the most often?
So for me, especially working in in software, I find myself really creating these simulations that I mentioned earlier, and happy to go into a little bit more detail about that just so that everyone kind of understands what that means. So for me, it's these kind of immersive experiences that are as similar to real life as possible. So how we do that in Genially, for example, it might seem like it could be really complicated, but we literally take a series of screenshots through the software. Imagine we're, training on one specific action, take a series of screenshots, and we link the pages through go-to-page interactivity. And that puts the learners as if they were in the software. It's really simple, easy to use. We do that a lot. And I also do a lot of branching scenarios as well. So for those of you, from the poll at the beginning, I saw a lot of you mention that you're kind of just starting that transition to instructional design. So if you're not familiar with branched or branching scenarios, that is a learning experience in which, based on your response, you're taken down kind of one path or another. And what you'll see next kind of depends on what you select. It's kind of like the ID version of the Choose Your Own Adventure book. So those are really fun because you can get super creative with them, do a lot of different things, but it also gives the learner that possibility to kind of interact and learn based on what the outcome is.
I'm a big advocate of agency and autonomy. I mean, I need the learner to do something. It's always a problem with me that, learning is being passive. And when I'm saying learning, I don't mean like asynchronous learning. I mean synchronous, asynchronous in the classroom, come what may. And people always think that asynchronous learning has to be passive, but actually not. There are like 4 different levels to the interactivity of an e-learning course, and it can go from passive all the way to like creating avatars and whatnot. But there's something I was actually talking to Brenna and William about the last time, is that sometimes instructional designers, we get pot committed and we like to self-hug way too much, that we love our own designs, that and we just keep on building the same thing sometimes because it works. Well, if it worked in one, it's gotta work for the other one. Obviously, I love branching scenarios like Brenna. It's one of the things that I do love to create a lot, synchronously and asynchronously. Genially, I like to use it for branching scenarios. Actually, I taught instructional designers before how to deal with subject matter experts. So I present to them 3 different types of subject matter experts. They go into statistics about how they are, and then they get into an actual conversation with the subject matter expert, and through which they get feedback on their decisions. This was not an activity meant for practice. This was actually presenting them with how you can an SME. So you don't really have to look at every aspect where I need to do either a knowledge check or a quiz or a practice, a knowledge check, a quiz, or a practice. Passive learning is built upon this. Passive learning is, okay, I'm going to let them practice something, then let's think about a game. Let's think about branching scenarios. But actually, your entire learning program, come what may the modality of it, can be built on a story, can be built on a narrative. So if I could say branching scenarios, I could say that more often than not, I heavily depend on the concept of storytelling and building narratives. Branching scenario it is, game it is, escape room it is. And there's a tool, I was talking with a colleague yesterday that I was telling her about this, it's actually called Inkle Writer. Since Brenna said text-based adventure, Inkle Studios is actually a text-based gaming studio, and they created something for educators and learning designers called Inkle Writer, I-N-K-L-E. So Inkle Writer, you can build up a case study, you can put pictures, you can put even minor conditions, and people can choose how to do it. And also, you can take that link, take that baby, and put it in Genie or put it in any platform or LMS. So it's pretty neat for drafting and even for utility of use. And just think narratives. It makes people live through the learning itself and can relate.
I will jump in here. So my kind of like go-to thing is, I think probably one of the biggest untapped resources in like a shared learning experience of people are doing it together is the people who are participating. And I try to maximize as much as I can opportunities where I can get people to, learn together, to create meaning together. I'm fortunate enough to have, to be working at EduFlow and designing courses on EduFlow. So we do peer reviews and we have discussions, and we even have, workshops where we do breakout rooms. So what I tend to gravitate toward is like opportunities to create this, shared learning experience where people can really tap into their to the collective, like I guess mind, the hive mind of everyone working together. Yeah, maybe if anyone again who has been in the instructional design principles course, if you can give me a thumbs up in the chat. And maybe if you did find the peer review process quite useful, it would be nice to see if anyone has gotten any value out of that experience of learning with other people and learning from feedback. Yeah, that's my 5 cents.
Amazing. Thank you all. We're not done yet. We're going to continue a little bit. But I do want to wrap up sort of our presentation session part, and then we're going to move on to a Q&A with all of our panelists and give all of you a chance to ask any questions that you'd like to. Before we do that, I want to say first, thank you all to the panelists. If you want to put any applause emojis in the chat or in your reactions on the bottom, feel free. Excellent, amazing, and excited to hear your answers in the Q&A. I kind of feel like that is like the hive mind time, and the chat has been really fantastic. We don't want this conversation to end. We want to be able to continue sharing some of these resources. We mentioned we wanted to share some examples with you as well. And so we put together a short little EduFlow course with some Genially examples built in, and with some examples of how we, create these learning experiences through these 2 products. We also have some discussion posts in there where you can add in your LinkedIn or add in your favorite learning theory that you wanted to mention in the chat, and it maybe flew by too fast. And so we have some opportunities in there for you to engage. We also have some opportunities for you to earn a certificate in this. It's a really short course, so you only need to do 2 activities to earn the certificate. And that way you can post it on LinkedIn. You can tag us on LinkedIn and let us know that you attended this session, and let us know that you learned something and found something that was insightful. So the link to the course is coming in the chat right now. Perfect. And let's see. Double check if I had any other things I wanted to mention. Oh, I also wanted to mention, since I'm one of the facilitators and community manager at EduFlow Academy, I just wanted to do a quick plug. You heard about it a bit already, but if you are interested in our courses, you can also check out this link with EduFlow Academy. And I have some information in there. I'm just going to drop a bunch of information. And our next cohort of designing social learning experiences is actually closing soon. The applications are due on October 2nd, and it starts on October 7th. Our instructional design principles for course creation is accepting applications through October 30th, so through the month, and then our next cohort will be starting November 4th. So if you're interested in any of those, you can feel free to check those out. I will definitely pop the course for this roundtable back in the chat closer to the end as well. But before I do that, I want to turn it over to Chrisia. And we also have Christian here from Genially, and give them a chance to share some quick tidbits and anything they'd like to about Genially.
Hello, hello. So thank you, Mo. Thank you, William. Thank you, Brenna, for all this amazing roundtable. Actually, we have created a 360 tool, and I have to say that Genially is an all-in-one content creation tool. You can create a spectacular interactive and animated content. You can create learning experience, gamification, interactive image, and it's actually very easy to do it. I think that you have to be flexible, and this is a factor and a special factor that actually describe us there. Let's say that you can embed it, download as a SCORM, MP4, you can create a course, microsite, video. So it is actually amazing. I have to say that I love Mo's Genialist. You can reuse his Genialist, and it is amazing because you can find inspiration on our website too. So thank you very much for all your support. You all will have a 1 month free trial. I will send it to you. So thank you very much for all the support. And my friend Christian will send a Typeform form, so you can put all your information there because we have an amazing thing coming up with.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to pop that course back into the chat really quick if that flew by too fast for you to click. And you can join that course to get all of this information as well as the recording of this session. So we are going to start our Q&A session. In order to make sure the Q&A runs really smoothly, what I'd like to do is have you use the raise your hand feature on Zoom if you'd like to ask a question, and I'll let you unmute. So I'll kind of, make sure not 5 people are trying to talk at once. And so I'll click ask you to unmute if you raise your hand. Otherwise, if you do have questions and you aren't comfortable getting unmuted, you can pop them in the chat and I can ask them for you as well. So if you are ready, you can raise your hand if you'd like to ask one of our panelists a specific question. Awesome. And Ankit, I'm going to select you first.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'll be recently transitioning into an instructional design role. So it would be my first professional instructional designing role. Prior to that, I was teaching in the K-12 segment, and the organization which I'm moving into has a very new learning and development facility. So expectation is from my end is that I'll be driving their L&D processes. And as far as now, how I am anticipating things, they just have a raw PPT which they are sending me, and they are expecting me to develop an end-to-end e-learning out of it. So my question to the panelists are that how to tackle such situation where just the company has the raw PPT and doesn't have any clue what to do about it in terms of e-learning, and how do we approach that raw content and convert it into an actual e-learning and deliver the solution.
So I would like to just jump in first, and considering that this is your first role in L&D as an instructional designer, to first of all, not get overwhelmed, right? And just take it one step at a time. So start with the first course. They provided the raw PowerPoint. My suggestion to you, the first thing would be to kind of go through that content. And I saw one of the attendees write in the chat earlier, take out the must know, the need to know from the nice to know, and start there. Take out, analyze really that content. The need to know information is what you want to focus on, and really make use of some of these free, if you don't have budget for tools, really make use of some of these free tools that we've been mentioning today, or some other people in the chat have been mentioning, and just start small. Start with one chapter, one unit, one module, and go from there. And you can really kind of play around, practice, and show the team, show your company what you are capable of doing. When a company is just getting started with e-learning, there's definitely an aspect of change management that's involved. And, that is going to fall mainly on your shoulders to do that. So just show kind of what the possibilities are and how this new learning experience is going to give an added value to the learners compared to what they've been doing.
Okay, I'll continue on the cycle, which will be from the management side. It's extremely important to look into buy-in. I mean, you want the people's interest to be intrigued. If this is profit-centered, then by all means, you need to make the people aware of what you could do. You could build small interactions and basic learning, just snips that can let the people understand more about the valuable learning nuggets that you can offer to them. And you can use Genially for that. You can actually create videos. I know the first thing that will come to people's mind is, well, go Camtasia. But there are actually a couple of tools online where you can create really good videos borderline for free. For instance, there's a tool called Lumen 5. Okay, you can use that one, LUMEN 5. This is actually a tool that is used for marketing. Me, I use it for learning. And I create text-based and stock-based videos using it. There's also Clipchamp and many other AI tools that can make your life a lot easier. There's something called learner-centric. Learner-centric can actually let you download animated icons. So you can build animated infographics and take those and you can put them in Genially, or you can put them in any other tool. You can even make well, you can basically build a PowerPoint that can be worked on, like it's called a kiosk PowerPoint that doesn't need an instructor to utilize. So you don't need the fancy, big, expensive stuff to do this. If this is profit-centered, if it's cost-centered, then do lay out an awareness plan. Let them know who you are, what you're doing. Go crazy, do posters, do like a scavenger hunt inside of the company. Let them know whomever that would learn something can get a course about presentation skills or something that can help them in their next KPI. Do a complete rollover of the necessity of that learning program to get the buy-in of the employees. And from there, you can get some dense feedback from them, and they will be not going into this while they're being pushed into it, but actually they're willing to learn.
Amazing, thank you. I'm gonna ask a question from the chat, and then Amanda, you're gonna be on deck. So Kay in the chat asked, she just wanted to bump up this question earlier. Why shouldn't we include the objectives we've drafted based on Bloom's taxonomy at the beginning of the course? And also says, super interested to learn more about this. Thank you.
I'm pasting a link into the chat now. It's where Will Tolheimer, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, breaks down 4 different types of learning objectives. So the learning objective that we craft using, verbs, those are usually, we call those performance objectives. So I like to think of them as like, like the engine that makes a car work. You don't need to be able to be a mechanic to make the car drive. You just need to know how to change gears and push the gas and turn the steering wheel or whatever. The performance objectives are the engine of the course. We need to turn that engine into a user-friendly version for the learners so that they can actually understand them. Performance objectives are, they're made for planning. So what I recommend is to take that wordy, weird sounding thing and turn it into maybe a reflective question or a thought-provoking story or anecdote, something that really, really grabs their attention and tells them what they're going to learn without making it sound wordy and boring. So I really recommend there's this video in the link that I just posted that breaks down the 4 different types of learning objectives. It is a really, really great resource to dig into. Yeah.
And I want to chatter some dreams here. Well, not a single learner cares about your learning objectives, okay? They do not care. They never did, they never will. They want to know what I would learn, not the learning objectives. I'm so sorry. The learning objectives are important for two single things. The client wants to know about it, and more often it's for documentation purposes. And I need to know about it, and I need to build it because I'm building up everything upon it. And let me share another dream, share another thing. The learning objectives that you're building upon, what you call Bloom's taxonomy, that's actually called the cognitive domain of Bloom's taxonomy. There's also the psychomotor domain and the affective domain. Most veteran instructional designers depend on the combination of three of them. And that would turn out to be a huge number of objectives or compiled, compounded objectives. At the end of the day, the learner doesn't care, the learner wouldn't understand. So saying at the beginning of the course, by the end of this training, you will be able to, this is a sign for the learner to get their phone out and do something else until you're done. Because I don't care. I want to engage, I want to do something. So sorry to put it that blunt, but it is what it is.
Amazing. Thank you for your responses. Amanda, on video, I'm gonna give you a chance to ask your question now.
Awesome, thank you. So I think we touched on this a lot in the discussion with motivation and adult motivation theories and that kind of thing. But we have a situation right now where we're designing training, and there's a lot of environmental constraints that I won't fully get into, but we're encountering a lot of resistance from the people who need to take the training the most. I was just kind of wondering what are your sort of top three maybe suggestions for upping engagement in an environment where you are kind of constrained by a number of different things, but what can you as the L&D professional do to sort of boost engagement? Like what's in your power to do to try and help and get them in there?
What are the constraints?
We can't take out a lot of time for in-person training. Time is money, essentially. I mean, it's for every industry, but this industry in particular, they don't want to be away from their main responsibilities too much. We have 3 branches that are in very different geographic locations, so we can't bring everyone together. E-learning is kind of heavily relied upon, not always the best solution, but it's kind of the go-to solution that we have right now. And then there's just some negative history with the introduction of the system we're trying to train on. People are very they're feeling the change and they're not enjoying it. So there are kind of a bunch of factors at work.
I'll ask one more probing question. What happens if they can't do what they're supposed to be able to do? If we're thinking about risk, what is the risk of poor performance? Is it are they like assembly workers and they might lose limbs if they're not able to do things properly?
No, it's a project, like they're project managers mainly. So it has to do with the efficiency of managing the projects and the visibility of the data that we're putting in and that kind of thing.
I think building on what Brenna mentioned about adult learning principles is it's all about finding that internal motivator for an adult learner. You can't force adults to do anything. You have to compel them, or you have to lure them into something. I would turn it into a way of like finding out, firstly, if there is a skills deficiency at all. It might not be like this efficiency gain that we think we might be getting could be imaginary. Things could be working really well already, or maybe you could rephrase it as like, maybe you should build up a community of practice into where the project managers who are high performers can share their best practices with people. So maybe like a mentorship program, or like an apprenticeship program, or a resource knowledge sharing Slack channel. It doesn't have to be formal training. It could be there's this term called workflow learning. Like how can we weave this experience into the way people do things already, instead of having them go out of their way. So what I like in terms of this, if you wanted to maybe take it into like a systematic approach, you could look at, you know, the way you're doing your performance evaluations in the office, and then ask the managers to rate the employees based on the competencies that you think that they aren't, and then work that into a professional development plan, for example. So then they can seek the knowledge that they think they need, or that they know they need to plug a very specific gap. And then a bonus of that is that each person might have a unique journey that they need to follow, and then have unique learning objectives to kind of like complete that competency. So I would recommend finding ways for them to craft their own journey and to set their own goals as much as possible. And the performance reviews and performance evaluations are really nice ways to do that. That's like a nice starting point, because then 6 months later, you can do another performance evaluation and see if whatever intervention you introduced or whatever resources or the stuff you did, whether they were effective at all. But I'm pretty sure there's people in the discussion who might have some really, really useful suggestions as well. And I'd love to, if anyone has any ideas, you can type them into the chat.
Thank you.
So my background is in UN, but actually I have a bachelor's degree in human resources. So I'm going to take this from a human resources perspective. There's something that we've always hammered on, and I do appreciate, which is OJT, on the job training. So I need to understand their key responsibility areas, Amanda. What are they doing on day-to-day on day-to-day basis? Okay, and from those KRAs, there are two things that we always talk about: functional knowledge, functional skill. Things that are extremely necessary for them to carry out the job, to carry out the task, the actions that they're doing almost every day. And from there, we build our OJT plan. We are going to be encapsulating simple bites. I don't mean micro-learning, I mean bites. Bites of things that can help them carry out better performance of their job. I did what exactly William was mentioning before, which is we had a company with 6 teams in 6 different countries, and we did a combination of micro-learning using 7 tabs. Within 7 tabs, we actually used Genially, and within that, we used also Slack. And from Slack, we've put also small genies inside of it. And I created videos using Genially, and I put it up on 7 tabs, and that was fine, that was good, but that was a campaign. You can't really live on micro-learning. Micro-learning is good, they're nuggets, they're fast, they're biteable, but you can't really live on fast food. Okay, you need something nutritious, and what is nutritious is actually data and learning that can help me build better performance. You can use micro-learning to build awareness. You can do micro-learning to do reinforcement, and that can make them, oh, this is interesting. I can go for an e-learning to help me build this more. Oh, I didn't know that I need this on my job. And then when you give them that antidote, that thing that they need, that e-learning that will be helping them, oh, I could use this agile method on the job. I can increase the speed of my decision using this, not the history of decision-making and how Peter Drucker talked about it in leadership from God knows how many years. That doesn't count. I just want to do better decision-making to carry out. It doesn't have to be a huge one, just small. OJT. Think OJT and think for micro-learning campaigns, either for awareness or for reinforcement, or if you're going to be using a whole chunk, full campaign, it's only going to be for a short time. People are going to get bored easily. It's okay. It's a human condition. We get bored, and they won't just live on micro-learning for that long time.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That is something actually we're trying to do this time around is a micro-learning kind of campaign, but we're still encountering some resistance. So yeah, it's a tough issue.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Amanda. We
you.
have 2 questions that are kind of like tied up and related to each other that are specifically about people who are new to instructional design. So Amanda asked earlier in the chat, if there's any just overall advice for those of us completely new to the training and design space. And then Liz also asked about learning objectives specifically related to the portfolio. Like maybe it's not important to share learning objectives in a training, but would that be helpful in a portfolio piece, but then not really needed in the real world sort of situation? So I thought I'd tie those two together about new IDs, portfolio, and just any advice.
I would like to touch on the first topic a little bit, just a piece of advice. If you're just getting started, something that helped me tremendously was getting involved in the different communities that are available, communities of instructional designers, e-learning specialists. It's really great to learn from each other, see examples. Some of the communities have like different challenges. This week, let's create, a course based on this to give you some inspiration to, practice using some of the tools that you have access to, practice creating certain courses. So that would be like my main piece of advice, just getting started, is take advantage of all of the free or inexpensive resources and communities that you have available to you.
Awesome. Any other advice for new IDs from either Mo or William?
Sorry, I had to quickly jump out and sort something out behind me. I mean, this is like a shameless self plug, but I would recommend jumping into our instructional design principles course.
My bad.
So if you, we'll pop a link into the chat where you can quickly apply to participate. It's a totally free course, and I think the best part about it is that you get to meet other people who are instructional designers or who are transitioning into instructional design. So it's a nice way to build up your network as well. Mo, go ahead.
Mo, are you able to unmute and answer, or did you want to add anything?
You wouldn't answer what exactly? I was disconnected for a while.
Oh, sorry. You had talked, so we were like, "Oh no, is he trying to share something?"
I'm actually trying to see if I can change the network, and like I'm troubleshooting here.
For sure, no
what was the
worries.
question? I'm sorry.
I'll take the spotlight off you. It's all good. Awesome. I do want to see if there's anyone else who has a question. If you'd like to unmute or raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you. And so if you'd like to, or you can also pop a question into the chat. I've been trying to keep an eye on it, but it's possible that I missed some questions. So feel free to pop that in. Oh, and I also popped into the chat the instructional design course that William mentioned, and also just any of our EduFlow Academy courses. We have a community like Brenna was talking about that's free and has a lot of L&D and ID people in it, and it's really fantastic. So and then Chrissia, does Genially have a community as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have it in our community. Of course, if you want to become an ambassador, or you want to help us create a reusable templates as well, please feel free to contact me. I will send you amazing information in the coming weeks. So I have been also sharing some amazing templates while Mo was talking and everything about marketing fields. So I don't know if you all have seen that, but I will share with you as well. And
Awesome.
you can embed it in EduFlow and create your amazing courses in EduFlow and Genially.
I have to say something, Chrissia. I started up Genially from the community of Genially Inspired on Facebook.
We love you, Mo.
I love the people
there.
I learned a lot from. I learned a lot from them. So that was awesome. People need to check that Facebook group.
And you are with one of the best. You are with
examples.
Florina, and she's the best one too. So it is amazing. You have done an amazing work together. I'm so proud.
A lot of love to Florina. Yes.
Yes, Flori.
I love it. There's one more question in the chat, and then we'll probably wrap our session up. The last question is, do you have go-to questions when beginning the needs analysis process with either a client or subject matter expert, or do they maybe change every time? And if they change, kind of what is that information based on?
So in my experience, I do start with a set of go-to questions, but then of course the follow-up questions are, a lot of times based on what they say. So when you're just getting started, it's really important to know who the learners are, whenever possible, what their background is or what information they already are coming from. And then of course an analysis of the content as well. Those I think are always kind of the go-to, and then follow-ups from there. I can try to prepare a template and we can put it into the EduFlow course as well, so that we keep kind of providing extra content there.
Okay, I am going to, let me see if I can do this. Hold on. This might actually be a helper. This, okay, let's see if you are able to find this picture in the chat. Let me know if you can see it in the chat. I don't know. Let me see. Can everyone see it in the chat? I just sent it.
I can't see anything in the chat. Oh, now I
Is
see
it now? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So this is actually a framework that I use more often with my team members, and I teach it in class, which is the map that we should go through when we're about to understand if there's a learning need or not. And if you're looking into the picture right now, is there a training need? Why? Well, then who needs the solution? I need to identify who they are. And then which business goals are targeted? Big framed goals that are related to the business. And then what are the possible learning objectives? I'm here talking about drafted learning objectives. And then what are the specific knowledge context and skill sets that are demanded, and how it will aid the business goals. Then which data assembly tools to use for measurement. And when I'm saying data assembly tools, I mean, are you using surveys, focus groups, extent reports or extent data, which is KPIs, quality reports, operation reports, occupancy, utilization reports, attendance, you name it. Also assessments and tests, observation, interviews, all of those, the whole 6 tools of data assembly. And what else? Where was the picture? I have a lot of things open in front of me right here. Okay, after that, when you decide it, again, you put a complete overhauled understanding on why did you choose those assembly tools and how you're going to be doing the measurement. Which methodologies do you recommend? Do you recommend e-learning? Do you recommend the workshops? What do you recommend? And why did you choose those specific methods? I need to put specific reasoning to those methods to make sense of the solution that I'm going to build, or the thing that I'm going to work on with my learners. Last but not least, I do an empathy map. So the empathy map is, I need to understand what is happening with the learners. And also I've left a picture about this, the learner's empathy map, self, size, scope, and scale. I need to understand what is positive and motivates them, and what is negative and demotivates them. Who are the learners? What are they doing? What's the capacity of their skills? How do they usually behave? What's the scope of their skills? What's the scope of their knowledge? After all of this, I can finally do my data analysis, do my scientific research, and then start putting actual learning objectives and do my action mapping on good basis.
Awesome, thank you. Some people in the chat asked they couldn't open the pictures, so I'm going to go ahead and post them on our course. That's like sort of our wrap up of the roundtable discussion we had today. Oops, I just sent it individually. Now I will send it to everyone. Here it is, so that you can all see that. I see a couple other questions and we could probably talk for 5 hours or 10 or whatever it might be, but let's continue chatting in the discussions in the course link that we just sent. And that way we can continue the learning and continue sharing the resources, but also respect everyone's time for today. So lastly, I want to say thank you so much to our panelists and everyone who participated today. We appreciate you so much. If you'd like to give us a little applause emoji, either in the chat or in the reactions, that would be amazing. And I hope you have a wonderful day, however many hours are left in your day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Amazing. Well, thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and shut down our meeting. Have a wonderful day.